question is, where and when did Mom and Dad Wilson first meet? And how did Father Wilson propose to Mother Wilson?
We have to go way back. I met him first, though he wouldn't remember this, in 1934, when he had been president of the student body at BYU. I was just being graduated from Ogden High School, and my father, David J. Wilson, who was a #1 alumnus of Brigham Young University, took me down to his 20th reunion. He was graduated from BYU in 1914. He had grown up in Midway, Utah, and it had been a terrific struggle for him to go to college. He had worked some years on the farm and then been able to have a year at the BYU, and he was a very outstanding student there. He had been student body president for 2 years before he was graduated in 1914. Then he went to Ogden, Utah to teach at Weber College and boarded at my mother's home with her parents, and met my mother, and they were married in 1916. So I went down with him. For some reason, my mother couldn't go to this special 20th reunion of his at the BYU, and I went down as his partner. I watched from a distance, and so I became very well acquainted with that name. Meredith Wilson, Met Wilson. And I saw him there, and he was a wonderful speaker. And he was always in my consciousness after that. I didn't actually meet him until the fall of 1937. I went to Weber Junior College when I was graduated from high school for 2 years, and then I went down to BYU for my junior and senior years. When I got there as a junior, he was gone. He was over in England. He had been teaching, he may tell you under what circumstances, for 2 years after he had been graduated, and then he went over to do graduate work at the University of London and London School of Economics, and he was out of the country during my first year at the BYU. I loved the BYU. I was active in debating, I was active in many things, I was a drama major. I took religion classes from Guy C. Wilson, Met's father, and found him a wonderful and challenging and remarkable teacher. And you can't get all of this complicated family detail into any one story, but you all know that Guy C. Wilson had the 2 families, and he lived with Met's mother, Mother Melissa, during the week at the BYU, and then he would get on the train on Friday and go up to Salt Lake and spend the weekend with his family in Salt Lake City, and every once in a while I would get on this train and ride back to Ogden, where I lived. And he and I would sit together and have just lovely talks about anything from who had just won the world championship boxing match to, just anything. He was very, very easy to talk to. Met always adored his father, and I can well understand why. But I heard later that Guy C. Wilson had somehow come up with the idea that Marion Wilson and his son Met Wilson would make a good pair. And there were quite an amazing number of people during that year who had the same idea. But Met Wilson, to me, was this exalted figure who had been president of the student body before I ever got there. and he was now off in Europe. And I didn't actually meet him until the fall of my senior year at BYU. And I was the bridesmaid for a very good friend of mine for her reception. And Chauncey Harris, who was the son of the president of the BYU, asked me for a date to go up Provo Canyon for a steak fry. And I said, well, I have to be at this reception, but if you don't mind our going late, then we could go up. And he said, oh, I'll be glad to wait. So after this reception, he and I went up to this steak fry, and I actually, as sort of an equal or someone with whom I could speak, I met Wilson. And I was very attracted to him, and this was an amazing experience, this steak fry. What they did was buy T-bone steaks, huge ones, for 25 cents. They went up Provo Canyon and they found flat rocks, built a good fire, put the rocks in the fire, got them very, very hot, fished them out, put the steak on the rock. Fortunately, I like my meat rare. Let it cook on one side, flipped it over, and by then it was dark. You couldn't tell that it wasn't really cooked at all. And had the steak. Then, soon after that, met, who knew Chauncey Harris very, very well. They had been actually in England at the same time. Chauncey had been a Rhodes Scholar, but had been living in London, and they had been roommates, flatmates. And they were both wonderful young men, but met soon, asked me for a date, and from the time we both met, there was not much question in my mind. You can ask him the question about that. I still went out with other people, but by the time late fall came, I knew that he was the man for me. I don't know how much of this you want.
When did he propose?
He didn't propose until just before Valentine's Day, but I think we both knew it was our fate. He came up to Ogden in a borrowed car. He had no car. He borrowed Floyd Millett's car. Floyd and Vera Millett have remained dear, dear friends to this day. He drove it up to Ogden. He had bought me a Christmas present, Prince Machiavelli perfume, which was in the trunk of the car, came up to see me at Christmas time, came in, stayed overnight, we'd had a lovely time, went out in the morning, the car was gone. This borrowed car, it was a terrible experience, but the car was found without too much damage, the perfume was gone, he replaced it, but again, with all of his wonderful sensitivity, we both, I think, knew before Christmas that we were going to spend the rest of our lives together, that he planned to give me my diamond. I still don't know how he was able to afford that. He had wonderful credit, but he planned to give me my diamond at home. So we went to Ogden the day before Valentine's Day, and on the 13th of February, 1938, just before midnight, he gave me my diamond, and I went in and woke up my father and mother, and I don't think anyone was too surprised, but everyone was very happy, especially me.
What year was that? You know?
This was 1938, and we were married in August of that year. So this year it'll be 54 years. We've been really, really fortunate.
That's great. Well, Granddad, any further comments on that whole story?
Oh, listen.
Well, yes. I left the BYU in the summer of 1936. I had thought I was going to go to the Orient. I had a fellowship to spend the summer, which was going to be paid for by Japan and China, at the winter capital of the Philippine Islands, where they're going to teach us all about the politics of the Orient. But Japan invaded Manchuria,
Oh, wow.
and when after the Manchukuo incident, the Japanese people wouldn't cooperate anymore, so my fellowship was canceled. I had a passport already paid for, and I taught for 2 years as sort of substitute because my chief professor had taken ill in my senior year. The president of the university asked me if I'd teach until he got well. So instead of doing anything else, like go to law school, which I thought I might do, I taught the year after I graduated college English history and United States history at BYU. Then when spring came in '36, I decided I really ought to get qualified, so I made arrangements not being able to go to Bataan, the Philippines, and went to Heidelberg and to London. When I came back after what I thought was a very successful 18 months, I arrived at the BYU and they said, "You not only will have to teach the classes you used to teach, we want you to manage the debate program." And the best debater in the women's group is Marion Wilson. So I went looking for her and could never find her. Under the circumstances, I had to organize a debate program without her. She was a very reluctant performer. But as she said, I had some friends who liked to have what they called steak fries on hot rocks. We went to Aspen, which is in Aspen Grove, which you may know.
Backside of Timpanogos. Yeah.
Just below Aspen Grove, we'd build a big fire and put our rocks in carefully, making sure none of them were slate, because they'd explode. Just as we were raking the rocks out, Chauncey Harris and Marion came into the canyon. And I discovered that she didn't really know what kind of meat she was eating because she couldn't see it. She thought it was delicious, but when she saw it in the headlights of a car, she shuddered a little bit. She saw she liked raw meat. Shortly after that, I asked her for a date. What I remember most was that I was also asked by a fellow named Tyrrell Pardo, who was the head of the speech department, to speak to the theater club. So I gave a report on the London theater that I'd seen, and I had a lot of programs. As I walked out, Marion was on the corner, and I said, "You haven't forgotten my date, have you?" She said, "No." So I felt reasonably comfortable. And from that day on, I never did ask anybody else for a date. She was not available, and she often was not. I took my sister, Tony, who was the daughter of my father's other wife, who had children. So Tony, for me, was a sort of precious person. We could go to dances and have fun and supervise what Marion was doing. About Christmas time, well, before Christmas, I'd known much earlier than Marion knew that she was in trouble. But I asked her for a date for Christmas, and we went up there, and she's given me the story of the anxiety we felt. But I also asked her for a date for Valentine's Day. About 10 days before, I'd gone to the local jeweler and arranged for a ring that was much more expensive than I could afford. And arranged for money to borrow it. Then I took her up to Ogden, sat on the front room couch, and at 11:59 I asked her if she'd marry me.
Lovely shirt, thank you.
And she said she would, and with a great deal of relief, pulled out this ring, which I couldn't afford not to have used. She accepted it, put it on her finger, and she ran to speak to her parents. That's all it is.
That's great. Thank you very much. You're live.
And
When did they first meet?
I don't know. I know that my father was teaching and my mother was a student.
Okay.
So I guess that's the answer.
Okay. Good. And do you know how father proposed?
No, I do not.
Okay. All right. Great.
How I think they met, where I think they met.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to have to reach into conversations with people I know who knew them, because I don't know exactly a lot of detail, I don't think, from Mom and Daddy. I think they met in Provo. My recollection of some conversations with Aunt Barlow is that there were people who told Daddy about Mom in advance, and that there were several who felt that there was a woman who would be uniquely suited to him, and that was Marion Wilson. And one of the people who had had a chance to meet her and who wanted her to meet Daddy was Daddy's father, Guy C. Wilson. And I don't know whether Guy C. Wilson had her in a class or how he knew Mom, but he had gotten her flavor and thought she was just wonderful, and told Daddy there was someone he should meet. So my impression was that when Daddy did meet Mom, however and wherever that was, he must have been predisposed to take special interest that this was the woman that people had told him about, and he already knew that she must be something really special. And my thinking is that was in Provo, Utah. And there's 8 years difference in their age, and somehow I think he might have been doing some temporary faculty. I know he was teaching a class for someone who died before he finished the semester, and I don't know if that's the time or what.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was in Provo.
Okay.
What on earth, how he proposed, I don't know, but I think it was on Valentine's Day. And I think that my mom's parents were thrilled, and I think Grandmother told me that Mom and Daddy came to their house on Valentine's night, and that they said they had news. And Grandmother and Granddaddy were certain what that news would be, because they had felt how truly congenial these two people were and what a wonderful pair they would make. And it seemed a certainty to them before it was a fact. And it certainly sounds to me like Guy C. and Melissa felt the same about it. And speaking just for me, I couldn't be more pleased.
Thank you very much.
That's what they decided.
I'm the lady who, for 49 years, I've had an imperfect memory, but my best recall says that my dad was a young fill-in teacher at Brigham Young, a handsome, athletic fellow who professed to be shy, but we've come to suspect his severity over the years on that score. And that he heard from many sources he admired that there was a lovely young woman, vivacious, beautiful, dark-haired, curly-haired, who was a bright student at the Y. And they met, he as a teacher, she as a student, and I suspect it didn't take long for them to figure out that they had 6 twinkles in their eye that needed to come out into this world to be an adoring family forevermore. We've had such wonderful parents, Mom and Dad. It was good that they met. And we thank them for that. I'm not really sure. You wanted to know how it was
The proposal?
the proposal. It's almost anyone in our family could tell you that that proposal came on February 14th. It must have been in 1938 is what I suspect. They were married on August 31st, 1938, and met. Their oldest child was born December 22nd, 1939. And my dad, the shy fellow, I'm pretty sure made a romantic proposal, but you'll have to get those full details from them. My mom was not shy. She was a drama major at the Y, and she tells a wonderful story herself, and I hope she's addressed this question. I think she will.
Okay, I think we got it.
Thank you, George.
Thank you. Dave, what's your response? I assume you know the questions.
Now, this is about how Mom and Dad met.
That's right.
Is that right?
Uh-huh.
And you know, I don't know, and I'm some embarrassed about that, but I have snatches of memories about different parts of it. And I've always figured that it was like the coming together of the dream team. That Dad was on a mission when Mom arrived at school, and when he returned, everybody said that's who we needed to meet, and they told her about him, and that's what I think. But actually, my favorite part of it is hearing Dad talk about going to visit Mom's house and having Uncle Keith ask Dad about whether or not this finger on his left hand didn't itch yet. And that's really all I know about it.
And do you know anything about the proposal?
Yes, Valentine's Day proposal. I don't know if that was because Uncle Keith was applying more pressure then or because of the date, but Valentine's Day proposal is what I remember. And I think that's all I really know about it. I know it may not even be related to this question, but I can't help but say that I remember that Dad describes the people he dated as very few, but he does say that there was one woman he took to a formal who had to stand up on the way to the dance in his front seat because she didn't want her dress wrinkled. And I'm sure Mom must have been a great relief. That's all I know.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, I thought that they met when Mother was in Father's class, but I don't know that that's true anymore. I can't picture him proposing. I assume that Mother found some clever way to help him.
Great. Anything else?
No.
Okay, great.
They're wonderful folk.
When they met, would have been about 55 years ago. So 55 minus 92 is about 1937. They met, which would have been during World War II, or just before World War II. Dad was probably a fighter pilot, and I know it had something to do with Valentine's Day. And I think Mother was an Army nurse, and they met in a hospital. And then on Valentine's Day, he asked her to marry him, and she said sure. And that's what I know.
All at once. Thank you.
Get out to wad of silly putty on the back of my hand. And then the next year I'd say to my mom that I wanted to take the silly putty with me, and she would say, but honey, and then she would say, I'm sure you can do it this year. But sure enough, that year it was on the back of Dad's pants too, and the only reason it stopped happening is I stopped liking silly putty. And
I agree very much with Margaret Morris that none of us can remember childhood without the supportive mom in there. Also, she was a very fun mother. I remember that she could be with us around the dinner table and tell us about her day, and it would be so much fun. She would make every meeting she went to, every encounter that she had sound like the most exciting thing that ever did happen. And when I was later married and a mother and reporting back to my table, I sometimes wondered how my mother did that, because those meetings just didn't seem quite so exciting in the flesh as when reported. My mom found fun in everything. When we were growing up as 6 children and a wonderful mother and father, we played games, and many a time we chose to stay home instead of going to be with friends, because there was so much fun to be had at home in a family game or doing something together. And it was, Dad loved Mom, and Mom loved Dad, and they both loved fun, and we were a pretty lucky 6 youngsters growing up because of that.
Okay. My memory is really very much like Marty's and Mary Ann's, and I am in complete accord with theirs as well. I think as I look back, one of the things that is a chief memory to me is that my mom always looked beautiful, and I was always proud of how she looked, and part of her beauty was the look of just love in her eyes, and part of it was the sense of good cheer and goodwill that was always in her spirit. And it didn't take me long to learn that we were very lucky as a family to have her, and that she sort of set the tone of our days. And I remember when I was in, I don't know, high school or college, wherever I was first assigned to read the book Dandelion Wine, that there was a passage in there that described a wonderful woman, and among the things that it said was that this woman, in the description of her, it said, waking, she touched people like pictures, setting their frames straight. And as I read that description, I thought, that is really my mom, that she was able, with each of her 6 children and also with her husband, to sense if our was were a little bit akimbo, and she had the magic touch to set our frames straight. And this was, I'm sure, a tangible thing to all the children, but it was also true among my friends, that my friends through the years have told me, I'd really rather come to your house than go to our house, because I like to be where your Mom and Dad are, and you are so lucky to have such a cheerful mother. And through the years, you know, Joy has come to live with us. My friend Calvin Jensen used to just be nourished to come and be with them. My friend Denise used to come as a refuge from home to our home. And I used to think that part of the son's coming up really came up with our parents. And I think the love that they had for each other is just something that was so abundant and spread abroad in the house, and it just blessed us every day. And I think Daddy's such a part of that. And that's another thing my friends used to say after a party, let's call your parents to have them take us home, because they're the nicest ones and the most fun ones. And they've been such a winsome and such a joysome, and we couldn't feel luckier.
I was a senior in college, a student at the University of Minnesota. Minnesota. I was feeling a little lonesome because sister that I'd spent a big part of my life with had left for the West Coast.
Anybody know where Eric is?
Mom,
Marianne, you know where Eric
one
is?
day, Marianne, how about if we go out to lunch once a
Connie?
week during this school year?
I'll get
And
him.
we did.
Did you
And we
ask
had
Marianne where Eric
lunches
is,
in
Dave?
some little student cafe in Dinkytown, not fancy places. Oh, we went but fun, different places, and we always had such a wonderful visit. And that was the year I discovered how much fun it was to talk to Mom about anything big or little that was on my heart. Thank you, Mom.
Here, 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 here.
I remember fondly the morning cup of coffee with Marion and Mick. Marion is always so thoughtful and so willing to prepare that extra pot when those anticipated but unscheduled guests drop in spontaneously in the morning.
Well, Father Wilson did not marry early. He couldn't find the girl that was quite the girl of his dreams. And his father became very concerned about this. He wanted his son to find a companion wife that was intelligent and beautiful. And, with that son growing older, he was concerned that this might not occur, so he decided to take matters into his own hands. And he saw this beautiful girl, and she turned in a few papers and got A's on them. And he then called Father Wilson in and said, "Son, now I know that this is individual responsibility, but I think you should look into this girl." And when Father Wilson saw her, he thought, "Is she ever beautiful?" And then when he started having conversations with her, he discovered she was even smarter than he was, so he decided to marry her.
That's great.
Now, for memories of Sun River, I'll have to give a memory first of before Sun River. I first met Mother and Father Wilson at Kent Christensen's house, and Betsy Christensen's house, and I was very nervous. I did not realize I was only one in the procession of people that were being interviewed. And in fact, I didn't realize I was being interviewed. And I asked Kent, trying to make conversation, what his field was. And Kent turned and said in a nice loud voice, I'm doing research on the testes of salamanders. And I didn't know what to do with that. I was totally embarrassed, and fortunately Connie passed me something and patted my hand under the plate, because I figured I was all through. My memories of Sun River are many. I guess I remember playing tennis where the tennis ball actually splashed on the court. And I remember that long hike we took on a dusty trail up towards some caldera years ago, all in single file. And I have very fond memories of fishing with Matt, and not diminishing the fish population substantially, but enjoying the visit. And I've loved floating down the river with Connie, and loved our bike trip some of the boys and I took up to the caves.
Thank you.
I remember last year when we went on that hike to Broken Arrow. That was really fun.
Broken Arrow?
Or that it's Broken Top. Broken Top. Yeah, and we climbed on this glacier, and Will started to swim down it on his boots.
I need another one of the Three Sisters.
That was amazing.
Any rebuttal?
That was so fun.
Well, you did too. We had 6 people skiing actually down this huge mountain.
Sorry.
It was tremendous.
I wasn't there.
Yeah, will you come out and get one photograph once you come
Like after the play, and how fun it is to like sneak down the side and people can't see.
Did you ever bring one home for the team?
Once, yeah.
All right. Good job.
Press the red button. Before I do that, what do? Press it to normal.
Wait a minute, I had a couple thoughts. What were they again?
Not too late. Spontaneity.
Oh wait, it's recording.
Are we live?
Yeah.
Really?
I think so. Does it say REC?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay. Well, I remember this one time I made it to the second round of the backgammon tournament, and it had to be one of the most thrilling moments of my life. I was then beat to push the red button this time.
Right. Okay. It's recording. Go ahead.
Okay.
So you lost to Sarah?
I lost to Sarah Wilson, but you know, there's no loss of pride in that.
Right.
And that was a touching moment here at Sun River, but really, the food is what keeps me coming back, and the wonderful company.
The food though is first. Is that what you're saying?
No.
First priority.
No, it's just really good.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I remember when Margaret and Amy and Jenny and I don't remember who else was there, made the marshmallow Rice Krispie pig, and we shaped it very carefully, and then we took a cherry tomato and stuck it in its mouth for dessert. And that's my memory.
Go.
In 5.
I don't know who told me to talk. Anyway.